Welcome, everyone, to our brand new podcast called Getting Deep with a PhD and a JD.
Hey, Kimmie.
Hey, Nicki.
So, I have a question for you.
I know it.
Okay. So, what is an unintended consequence of the Roe versus Wade decision that just occurred, overturning it?
Overturning it, yeah. I think the issue with that is that there are actually so many consequences, number one, of overturning Roe v. Wade that people don't pay attention to, and that it's more than just about abortion. And in particular, what kind of piqued our interest in this is the fact that criminal actions are being taken against women who suffer through a pregnancy loss, whether it's a miscarriage or a stillbirth.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And, I think the reason this was really important for me to talk about is because a lot of times people don't think about laws and they have these in the intent of the law, but then you have these unintended consequences. And I think it's really important for people to realize that it's not just about access to abortion that Roe versus Wade looks at, but it's about privacy and it's about reproductive health.
Mhm.
And now we see that there
And
are
body autonomy.
and body autonomy. And now we see that there are women who are actually being arrested for losing pregnancies. And
Yes.
so I know one of the recent ones that that I just heard about was Brittany Watt from Ohio.
Mhm.
And this is a 33-year-old woman without any type of criminal history. And she's been charged with felony abuse of a corpse because she underwent a miscarriage at 22 weeks of pregnancy. And the interesting thing about this is that she knew that her baby, because I'm going to use the term pregnancy, she knew that the pregnancy had ended because she had gone to the doctor twice. And so she was sent home because they knew that she was going to have, and it's a little bit, because it's 22 weeks, they usually call it a stillborn birth
Mhm.
versus a miscarriage. But in this case, I know that the papers have reported it as a miscarriage. And so she was sent home for this to happen. And so when it happened, the pregnancy ended up in a toilet. And the reason she was arrested is because the toilet ended up being clogged because she flushed it. And then people found out, and she was charged with abuse of a corpse. So that's what the charge is.
And I think what I would want to insert here is the reason why she was sent home. And this is one of the aspects of overturning Roe v. Wade that people aren't paying attention to. So one of the aspects of it is that when women go into miscarriage, and I'm sorry, where's my cursor here? Okay, so when women go into early labor with an unviable pregnancy, doctors are now prevented from inducing the delivery because it's technically an abortion. So if it's in a state where abortion is either not protected or illegal, doctors basically cannot give a woman care that she needs when a pregnancy or the fetus becomes unviable, the fetus dies. Basically, the fetus dies, right?
Yeah.
So because the doctor can't care for the woman, she just has to go home.
Yeah, go home and figure it out. And
suffer through it.
And some people will say, well, before Roe v. Wade was overturned, women did have miscarriages and stillbirths at home. Yes, that is true. But because Roe v. Wade has been overturned, we see that the number of women who are having to navigate this landscape has increased.
Yeah.
And because in some of these cases, the women would go to the hospital, they would have an abortion, or they would have a D&C um, as part of the miscarriage process. And
Right.
then they would be given medication, and then they would, be observed, and then they would be sent home.
Mm-hmm.
But now, women are being sent home, and women are being, some are by themselves, and so they have to figure out, like, what do you do? And I was even thinking to myself, what was she supposed to do? Because she knew she knew her pregnancy was not viable, and that she would have this material that was being expelled. What was she supposed to do?
Right. Was she
What was she
supposed to
supposed
go
to
in
do?
there and fish it out and then take it back to the doctor? It's
Was
just
she supposed to
ridiculous.
call the police? Was she supposed to call the ambulance? Was she supposed to, what was she supposed to do? In I just can't imagine a woman. Now, this was a wanted pregnancy. This was a
Right.
wanted pregnancy, and I just can't imagine a person wanting to be pregnant, being told your pregnancy, and I believe the pregnancy died in utero.
Hmm.
There's no, and even the medical examiner, when they performed the autopsy, they
Hmm.
did find out that the death occurred in utero. So
In utero. Yeah.
we're not talking about a viable fetus that was then killed.
Right.
We are talking about a death that occurred in utero, and the
Right.
trauma that woman must have been experiencing, and then to have to expel this pregnancy, and then not really knowing, well, what do you do? What do
Right.
you do?
Right. Because the doctors are so scared in these states to engage in any kind of, because this is one of the things that people don't think about, is that Roe v.
Yeah,
Wade, the medical procedures that are necessary not only for abortions, but also for other medical emergencies that occur during pregnancy, that
absolutely.
is there to both help save the woman and maybe, to help save the woman's life
Right.
when a fetus is not viable. Because you don't have to you don't have to have a college degree to understand that keeping dead tissue inside your body has to create a medical risk.
Exactly. And speaking of that, in Texas, there's a lawsuit going on, and I believe that I think there were 7, and I think there may be 10 plaintiffs right now. And the lawsuit is because they want clarification about medical emergencies and the abortion ban. Because I know one of the women, um, speaking of future harm, she was having a miscarriage, and they could not give her the care that she needed because they said that it wasn't imminent, like the danger wasn't imminent. So she had to wait for a fever. She had to wait for
Mm,
sepsis or blood
sepsis.
infection in order for her to be at the point where they would give her an abortion. And
Wow.
as a result of all of this, of getting the fever, getting sick, she
Wow.
now has one of her fallopian tubes is now blocked. And so that will impact her future fertility.
Mhm.
And so it's, just
It's
the
terror.
fact, it's terror. It's terror. And like we said in our last episode, stop terrorizing women.
Yes. Like I just don't understand the attract. And this is like this comes from women and men, mainly men, but it's women. There are women that support this. So
Yes,
you can't make
yes.
it's not just men. It's
Right,
women too
right.
that are terrorizing women.
Women are
And
terrorizing women. But you
and
know what?
it's just nonsensical to me.
But that's also because women are raised in the same environment that
Mhm.
encourages the terrorization of women. And so
Yes.
even women can pick that up. And like I want to say, if you are anti abortion, you have every right to be anti abortion. You have every right not to have an abortion. But
Hmm.
that you should not be denying a medical procedure for other women who need it or who
Who
want
need
it.
it?
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, even if we stop there, where it's medically necessary, where it's needed. And there are people out there who still feel like, the woman's life doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, where women are viewed as just as vessels
Vessels.
through
Yeah.
which human
Yeah.
life passes through.
Right.
And then, once the life gets here, then what?
Yeah. Where are the laws to show that you truly believe in life and you
Or that
truly
you
believe
care
in
about
taking
life.
care of the mother and the baby? And,
Yeah.
I don't think it's any surprise that the states that have these strong abortion bans are also the ones with the highest mother and infant mortality rates, the highest levels, like when we talk about nutrition and we talk
And
about
healthcare.
healthcare, all
Yeah.
of these like the quality of life indicators that we look at, they rate very low.
A
And
vast majority
so
of them.
you
Yeah.
can't tell me that, like thinking about Mississippi, Mississippi was
hmm
really
It always
spearheaded
ranks
this.
down at the bottom
It always
for
ranks down at the bottom.
healthcare,
Tell me
mortality.
where it
hmm
doesn't rank at the bottom, you know?
Right.
Even literacy rates. Even I mean, there's so many things. And so I
Yes.
don't think it's a surprise that these states, if we lined up these different indicators and we looked at different bans on reproductive rights, then there's definitely a correlation there.
hmm Absolutely.
The other thing I want to mention is that the we have an increase of women who are we know of having miscarriages and having stillbirths who are being charged. And
hmm
also, they're also being charged whenever a substance is found in the woman's body, like an illegal substance, and
hmm
the cases that I read, it's a lot of times it's methamphetamines.
hmm
Like they'll find methamphetamines in a woman's body. And as a result, if there's a miscarriage or a
hmm
stillbirth, the woman has the risk of being charged with uh, involuntary manslaughter. There is a case that I did see where the person was charged with homicide. In fact, I think it was back in 1999 that the first woman was charged with one of these laws with homicide. Let me see if I can find my notes. Uh, it was in 1999. And I'm trying to think of the woman's name, but she was charged. She was the first woman, the first person who was actually charged using one of these laws. And she was
hmm
actually charged with homicide
hmm
because I believe um, she had either amphetamines or cocaine. She had cocaine.
hmm
Regina Knight, she was 24 in South Carolina, first woman charged with homicide. And this was a person who had an IQ of 72,
hmm
woman of color. And
hmm
so in South Carolina, and she was charged with homicide.
Yeah.
And so I think we also need to, look at substances and how we see, because people who want to have children, I truly think if we said, do you want to have a safe pregnancy?
hmm
They would say yes. Do you want your
Of
baby to be
course.
healthy? They would say yes. But we know about substance use. We know how um, substances, we know how powerful addiction is.
hmm
And instead of offering treatment, a lot of
hmm
times
Or
we are
services.
criminalizing or other services. We are criminalizing women, and we're making them even afraid to get prenatal care because of
hmm
fear of finding substances. And so we have folks who have not been arrested, but who haven't gotten the best prenatal care because of fear of being charged with one of these laws.
Yeah. Yeah. It's mind-boggling to me when you think about the idea of being charged with a crime because something biological occurred over which you had no control. So, I want people to think about it in that way because that's really what is happening. And then also to your point about the drugs, right? It's a convenient way to vilify a
Mm-hmm.
person, right? And you talked about this ahead of time, and my understanding as an attorney, there's a difference between correlation and causation.
Causation, yes.
And you were saying how there hasn't been any evidence to support actual causation that the use of a particular drug causes a miscarriage to occur or
Exactly.
causes a stillbirth to occur.
Exactly.
It hasn't been established. There may be a correlation,
There's a correlation, absolutely.
you
So,
know.
here's what medical science says about this. It's the different things are contributing factors to potential stillbirths or to miscarriages. And no one wants to say, so please, listeners, do not think that I am saying it is okay to use
Oh,
substances while you are pregnant. That is not what I'm saying.
disclaimer, disclaimer.
Disclaimer, like beep, 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 beep. What I'm saying is that what's happening is that women who women who are tested and substances are found in their bodies, or substances are found in their babies' bodies after their babies are born, even like if it's not a stillbirth, if the baby's born, there have been cases where women have been arrested and charged with a child neglect, and different
Abuse.
crimes,
Hmm.
abuse. And this is whether the child has um, issues occurring or not. A child it could be a perfectly healthy birth, and substances be found, and the mother still be charged.
Hmm.
But I also want to say, I want to go back to the correlation versus causation. Medical science has not said if you use this type of substance, it will cause a miscarriage or
Yeah.
stillbirth. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that these substances may contribute, just like you would say, medical conditions. You can have certain genetic conditions or certain things that happen that contribute to a miscarriage or to a baby being stillborn. But
And
yeah,
interestingly
it's
enough, you said that a majority of miscarriages are caused by a genetic
genetic abnormalities.
abnormality.
Yes,
Yeah. Hmm.
yes,
So,
and that's research done by Harry Kilman, who is a researcher and looks at placental tissue. And
mhm.
so what he did is he looked at tissue from those who died, who were stillborn, and then he looked at tissue from the placentas of normal, regular deliveries. And what he found is that in the stillborn case, 90% of those deaths, you could see a genetic abnormalities that made the pregnancy unviable. And so I think that is really important for us to
Hmm.
remember. And then we have a certain percentage where they just couldn't find a reason, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
So saying that women are responsible for these, for losing a pregnancy is just vilifying women. It's criminalizing women.
And
It's
terrorizing.
terrorizing women. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Stop terrorizing women.
It's a lot of terror going on.
A lot of
And,
terror. A lot of
and one of
terror.
the other things, so even if so you're if you're not miscarrying, well, I guess it is a situation of miscarrying or a stillbirth. But one of the things too that I don't think people think about is that in a lot of these states where medical procedures associated with abortion, I'm going to say that associated with abortion because they're used for other things, right?
Right.
Not
Yeah.
just abortion. But you know they if it's determined that the pregnancy is non-viable, yes, these women are required to carry them until term, or until, like,
Until
I
they get
guess
so sick
yeah,
that
yeah,
they are almost dead,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's ridiculous. There is
Mm-hmm.
no way that we should say, okay, we are going to take this woman's life and put this woman's life, like in terms of the balance, we're going to take this woman's life and make this woman's health and life, put it so far at risk. And,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's where I have to wonder, what does that say about me as a woman? What are
Yeah.
politicians saying? What is my value? And
Right.
not just as a woman, but as a Black woman. What is
Mm-hmm.
my value if
Mm-hmm.
if I become if I had to be pregnant and I had a non-viable pregnancy and I wanted to get an abortion and I was in a state with an abortion ban, and people are thinking,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, you can have an abortion, but your life has to be at risk. So you have to wait until these
And
things
so you're
happen,
at risk.
until your life is at risk. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, here's another anecdote. So this other doctor described a situation where the umbilical cord had detached from a fetus that was too young to survive. And rather than being allowed medical care to complete the miscarriage, the mother was instead forced to read brochures about adoption and fill out paperwork and wait 14 hours for the heartbeat to stop.
I mean, that's
Isn't it?
unbelievable.
That's just
That's unbelievable.
awful.
And you just think about the
And she
trauma, the
couldn't get
emotional
care.
trauma, the
Yeah.
emotional trauma that's going on in the first place. And then the medical establishment. And you know what? I don't want to even say the medical establishment. I want to say politicians. I want to put the blame exactly where it is.
Where it
Politicians
is.
are re-traumatizing women. The
Mhm.
trauma of knowing that you're either losing or you've lost a pregnancy, and then having to be re-traumatized. You know,
Yeah.
having people tell you that you are not worthy of care. Your life is not important. Your fertility is not important. You have to wait until those things are at risk before we'll even help you. I
Before
mean,
we do
that's,
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's really sad. And
It made me really angry.
it made me,
Researching
it
this
makes,
topic today.
absolutely, it made me really angry. And also,
Mhm.
I did some research outside the United States. Some of the strongest abortion laws, anti-abortion laws, are in El Salvador, where abortion is not allowed for any reason. And so you may have rape, you may have the life of the mother being at risk. And so I was reading about what has occurred there. And we have politicians who want a federal ban on abortion.
Oh,
And we have places that have put bans in place that have not had the exception for incest or for rape or for the life of the mother. And so I was reading about El Salvador and thinking, wow, this could be the United States,
oh, yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And there were women who had miscarriages and who had stillbirths, and people were disclosing their medical records to the authorities so that they can be arrested and investigated for homicide.
It's awful.
And I just think that is absolutely awful. And it is awful because we're in a system where our legislators are not knowledgeable of basic science, and they're not
Yes.
knowledgeable, and they're making decisions
Woo,
based on
that's a
their
word.
own, exactly, they're making decisions based on their own feelings, and whether their feelings are rooted within their own spirituality, their own
Mm-hmm.
religion, their own morality. Those are their specific feelings, beliefs, ideas, and thoughts. They are not making decisions based on medical science. And
Yeah.
I am so afraid for the young girls who are now coming into a world that is
Mm-hmm.
post Roe v. Wade,
Mm-hmm.
where something like looking at their health care, looking at the reproductive health care is at
Yeah.
risk,
Yeah.
and it scares me.
Yeah. So what do we do?
So what do we do?
What's our call to
This is a great
action?
segue, because we can't, just like you said on previous episodes, we deal with such hard issues, and we can't just say, okay, these are the issues, but we also have to be able to provide, here's something that we can do, here's some
Yes.
things that we can do. Hey, Kimmie.
Hey, Nikki.
So I have a question for you.
I know it.
Ah, okay. So what is an unintended consequence of the Roe versus Wade decision that just occurred, overturning it?
Overturning it. Yeah.
Overturning it, yeah.
I think the issue with that is that there are actually so many consequences, number one, of overturning Roe v. Wade that people don't pay attention to, and that it's more than just about abortion. And in particular, what kind of piqued our interest in this is the fact that criminal actions are being taken against women who suffer through a pregnancy loss, whether it's a miscarriage or a stillbirth.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And, I think the reason this was really important for me to talk about is because a lot of times people don't think about laws and they have these in the intent of the law, but then you have these unintended consequences. And I think it's really important for people to realize that it's not just about access to abortion that Roe versus Wade um, looks at, but it's about privacy and it's about reproductive health. Um,
Hmm.
and now we see that there
And
are
body autonomy.
and body autonomy. And now we see that there are women who are actually being arrested for losing pregnancies. And
Yes.
so I know one of the recent ones that that I just heard about was Brittany Watt from Ohio.
Hmm.
And this is a 33-year-old woman without any type of criminal history. And she's been charged with felony abuse of a corpse because she underwent a miscarriage at 22 weeks of pregnancy. And the interesting thing about this is that she knew that her baby, because I'm going to use the term pregnancy, she knew that the pregnancy had ended because she had gone to the doctor twice. And so she was sent home because they knew that she was going to have, and it's a little bit, because it's 22 weeks, they usually call it a stillborn birth
Hmm.
um, versus a miscarriage. But in this case, I know that the papers have reported it as a miscarriage. And so she was sent home for this to happen. And so when it happened, um, the pregnancy ended up in a toilet. And the reason she was arrested is because the toilet ended up being clogged because she flushed it. And
one of the first things that I came across was I think that you can, and when I say you, I'm talking about our listeners, our viewers. You can check to see if there are any organizations that accept donations to assist women who are in this kind of legal trouble. So, for example, I did run across this one legal defense fund, and I don't know, I haven't been able to research this particular organization, so I'm not going to say the name because I don't really know. But there are organizations out there where you can donate to offer bail and legal expenses for people who are facing criminal charges for abortion, as well as all of the other offshoots that come from that, which, miscarriage, stillbirth, and these women that are facing criminal charges for a medical occurrence for over which they had no control. So you can help with what's going on now within the legal framework that we have now. So that's one of the things I think you can do.
and I think that learning your laws and knowing your laws, I think this is really important because the landscape, the post Roe v. Wade landscape is changing so rapidly,
Yeah,
and you
it's very
really have to
confusing.
stay. Yeah, it's very confusing, and you really have to stay up to date on what's happening and what things are moving through your state legislature, and just thinking about um, how things could impact the unintended consequences, because
Hmm.
that's really what we're talking about. There are things
Hmm.
that are intended, you know,
Hmm. The politicians
folks.
like to talk about and use that word abortion, and it's a dog whistle, but they conveniently leave out all of these other things that are occurring as a result of, like I said, and that's why I made it. I wanted to highlight the fact that you know, these are medical procedures that
Right.
they are associating with abortion, but these are medical procedures in and of themselves that assist in a variety of different medical emergencies, not
Absolutely.
just quote unquote abortion.
Right. And, even, and we didn't really talk about this during our episode because it's so broad. I mean, we could talk about many, many things, but we could even move it to contraception, because there are
Hmm.
certain types of contraception that people will say fall into the abortion realm because they, like, for example, certain types of pills that
Yeah.
people
Oh, you mean
use.
like a plan B or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Some people will say, oh, that causes an abortion. And that's not true. I mean, the science is not there for it.
Yeah.
And so people are even trying to ban Plan B, which is a contraception which can be used directly after having an unprotected sexual encounter, whether
Right.
it's consensual or not consensual.
Right.
So, and I think, I definitely want to make the distinction between consensual or unconsensual, because Plan B can be used to, prevent pregnancy in both of those
In both
cases, in
situations.
both situations. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
you have to be knowledgeable of your representatives,
yes,
your local, your state, your federal
right.
representatives. Where do they fall in line on these issues?
And I will even say, Kimmie, that being aware of local, state representatives, because that's really where, now that Roe v. Wade is overturned,
Yeah,
that's
that's where
really
all
the
the stuff is
state.
happening.
That's where
Hmm.
all of the things occur. And
Yeah.
so really to be vigilant and to take time, and ballotpedia.com is one of the organizations that, if you go to their site, you can go there and they will tell you the different things that are on the ballot.
Oh,
Um,
that's very good.
yeah,
And
and it's
then
not just reproductive health care, but all kinds of
all
things you
kinds
can
of
look
things.
up.
Yeah,
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 and you can be
yeah. Hmm.
aware of those things. Yeah.
And then for your reproductive rights, you can go to the Center for Reproductive Rights. They
Yes.
have an interactive map that shows you where each state is on the abortion reproductive rights spectrum.
Right.
And so that you'll have the information that you need so that you can make informed decisions about your own health care as much as you can, you know. So it's important to get your information from there.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So, Kimmie,
Hmm.
now we're at our part, and we haven't sang in a while.
Oh, we haven't,
I
huh?
know, I know. It's almost like I think when we did our Halloween episode, we were just so
Yeah.
excited, and I think we forgot.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
we
we
just kind of,
well, we didn't sing in our
I
Halloween
don't think we
episode.
did.
Oh, okay.
We
I
did.
thought we sang in one of the recent ones, and we were like, "Oh yeah, we need to sing," and but then since then we haven't.
Since then we haven't. Okay, so we've got to bring it back today.
Bring
Bring it
it
back
in.
today. Bringing it back. Because we have to do our next segment, which is the
Tell
Tell Me
me something.
Something Good. Bow, bow. One of these days we got to pretend to forget about like copyright stuff and just start playing it in the background. We're just kidding. We're just kidding. Don't want
Yeah,
to break
so
any laws.
I know exactly, exactly. So what is good? I mean, there have been some states who put the issue on the ballot or in the ballot box, and ironically enough, Ohio, which
I
which is
know.
where we started this conversation, Ohio is one of the places, more recent states, where the citizenry decided that abortion rights should be protected,
Yeah.
and they voted to include it in the Ohio state, constitution.
Yeah. I think
And so
that's really
now what
exciting.
has to
Yeah.
happen is now the actual statutes, right, that
Yes.
are currently on the books have to be challenged
Right.
pursuant to constitutional, the fact that these laws are in violation of the Constitution.
Yes.
So that has to play out and so that's why this woman was still able to be charged with this crime,
Right.
because
Right.
it hasn't been aligned yet. Everything
Yes.
hasn't been aligned, and it takes time, unfortunately. But that has to happen. So once again, yeah, if you're in Ohio, what are your legal, your not legal, your political representatives? What is their position on this? Are there any cases, in the works? And once again, the defense funds, look for them and contribute if you can. Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I think is great is that a lot of folks are speaking up and they're talking about their own personal experiences. Um, I'm just thinking about even like if we had to go back 10 years, um, you just wouldn't have people stepping up and saying, this experience happened to me, so that people have firsthand experiences. They can understand them a little bit more. We just have so many people who are standing up and saying, um, reproductive rights are very important. And this is why. This is what happened to me. This is how my life was improved by what happened. And I'm willing to stand up and say that for the younger generation, I want the younger generation to be able to have these rights as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've seen famous people step up. I've seen people who aren't famous step
Mm-hmm.
up. I've seen lots of people writing about how important reproductive rights are, and the general population after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It seems like people are really waking up and really saying, wait a second, there are lots of things that I've taken for granted,
Mm-hmm.
especially by seeing these unintended consequences. People
Right.
have been surprised. And so the good thing is that there's more communication, there's more knowledge. People are really
Mm-hmm.
stepping up, people are talking about it. And hopefully, people will see that we're talking about healthcare,
Yes.
and the term abortion will stop sitting in the back alley, and we'll be able to say abortion is healthcare.
Healthcare.
It
Yes.
is absolutely healthcare. And
Yes. Yes.
that's a good thing. That's
Yes.
definitely a good thing.
Good. So let's keep the fight going,
Keep
y'all.
it going. Keep it going.
And keep it, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this episode as well, is that we need to keep this um at the forefront. Like
Right.
like
Right.
this is an issue, and it has to be addressed by the people that you're voting for.
Absolutely.
What are
Don't
they
get
going to do about it?
complacent.
Yeah.
Don't get complacent, because
Mm-hmm.
once you get complacent, that's when we find out that something like Roe v. Wade gets overturned.
Gets overturned. Yes.
And I just go back to the ability to control your own body, the ability to get health care without the fear of your medical records getting uh, exposed to everyone, the ability to just live without, like in Texas, they have people informing on people who've had abortions.
Yes.
I just
That's
can't
sad.
believe it.
That's
I
real
can't
sad.
believe it.
Yeah.
It's like some weird dystopian
Yeah.
novel almost,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's a wrap for this episode. I enjoyed the conversation. It's got me in a healthy anger response to what's
Yes.
going on. And hope all of our listeners and viewers enjoyed this conversation and are inspired to look into it further, protect their own rights, make informed decisions about their health care with what's going on right now, and can find ways, even in addition to what we've suggested here. So keep on listening, keep on commenting, keep on liking, and we'll keep on giving it to you.
Absolutely. And remember, like and subscribe, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And till next time.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.